Welcome to another B2B R&D Blab, and it's us again, Williams and Craig, and we're really interested in getting more people involved in the Blabs and getting more conversation about basically marketing, right?
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's not all about us.
No, like we said, it's insights and updates. Bring your questions. Anything people need to know, we can certainly answer for them. And if we can't, we know where to go.
And bring your advice too. So we welcome, marketers. Happy to have them join us. Like I said, it's not all about us. It's a collaborative industry. Nobody knows everything. Even though we do a lot of research and a lot of reading, nobody knows everything. And even if you do know almost everything, your perception of it, your take on it, and how you leverage it and strategize around it can be very different than how anyone does.
Absolutely. I find digital marketing in general to be sometimes the it depends industry. I know that's one of your favorite phrases, because but how you do something for one client is going to be very different for how you do it in a different strategy. It just depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. And I really enjoy getting those other opinions. Last week, there was a great conversation about Craig's new, not me, Craig, another Craig, his new business that he's working on launching. And we had some great conversation, both video and in the text on the side, about how he can better get his message out there, coming from all different walks of the marketing life, if you will. So it was really great.
I agree. And it was nice to have someone come on and say, here's my situation and I'm looking for some advice. But to your point also, it's how you're using it, why you're using it, what your goals are, and where your audience is.
Yes.
Not everything is appropriate for everyone.
No, and a lot of, there's actually going along that, I think there's some misconceptions about where people are lately. And I've heard this quite a bit. Oh, my audience isn't on X. And there's been some talk actually that certain age groups are jumping off Facebook like rats from a sinking ship. And the statistics, I know, the visuals kind of rough. But we saw some statistics this past week that indicates that's not even remotely the case.
And what's interesting with all the research we do, in a given day, there's conflicts on the statistics that come out, right? So one website or one authority says one thing and another one says another. And my favorite is what was coming up today? Oh, ad blockers this week, right? Oh, they're horrible.
Every week.
Oh, they're dying. They're causing everyone money before no one's using them. And so it's like, well, what is it?
Well, I saw that even in our email this past week. There were ad blockers costing us billions. Nobody's really using them. So somewhere in the middle, the truth doth lie.
And then you throw in the ad fraud.
Yes.
Yes. Blocking them, even when they're getting through, they're getting, they're being read by, non-human
robots. Which, just so you know, thrills me to no end to write. That robots are, in fact, already taking over the world. They are the cost.
They're reading our content.
They are reading our content. They are becoming self-aware. I don't recall the exact date that Skynet comes online and becomes self-aware, but I'm glad to see that we are helping along this transition from human to robot.
Now we just have to get them to buy, right? They're looking at the ads, they're just not buying. How do you convert a robot?
How do you convert a robot? Maybe that should, that's interesting. Let's focus on that a bit. How do we convert the robot viewers to purchase our actual products. What's interesting to me is that those robots are actually costing us money. YouTube is actually billing for robot views. They know it's a robot, but yet they're still charging. And we know they know it's a robot because they admit they discount those from the view counts. So
I was just going to say that.
You've got a robot watching it. We know it's a robot. We're not going to count the robot in the view, but let's charge for the view because, you know, something viewed it. So I love the thought of robots costing us money. It's just a matter of time before we're robots, Ellen. You'll have Robot Ellen, you'll have Robot Craig.
No, and I'm so afraid of the car that drives itself.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to say, okay, you know, Starbucks, please, and just be able to do something while I'm driving. You know, reading now, people say, you know, don't text and drive, obviously, don't.
That's called a taxi.
But that costs me money. The car is mine. I already bought it.
I suppose.
You know, it's think of how much more productive our morning commutes could be. I could have, you know, thankfully,
you could do all your marketing in the car.
You know, don't laugh. You've got the cars now with Wi-Fi, so we've got the self-driving cars with Wi-Fi. I may just have to live in my car. I will never have to leave.
So from robot, we were talking ad blocker, ad fraud. We were talking strategy. So, you know, how are marketers going to, you know, move forward and get their message out and avoid paying for people or things that aren't going to bring in potential customers?
That's sort of
Come on, answer it, Craig.
Yeah.
Is it so when we talk strategy, right? So we talk marketing strategy, but we're talking advertising, and I really see advertising as somewhat different. And we've said in the past, marketing and advertising and sales are all in the same bucket, which they are, because they all affect each other. But traditionally, you know, marketing and advertising came before the sale, and I think they still do. But in an overall strategy, you know, let's just throw it out there. What percentage is what, right? So how much marketing, meaning content marketing, social media, actual posts versus advertising, sponsored post or video ads or, you know, true native advertising? What do you think that mix needs to be to get to the sale?
You know, there's lots of research that seems to indicate the whole 80-20 rule. 80% of what you put out there should be the marketing, the content. 20% should be the sale, the buy now idea. But I think, and I hate to say this, it depends. It depends on your market, who are you talking to, who are you, and what are you trying to sell? If it's a service, it may be different than a product. And there are some products you see ads, and I think the lines are blurred between marketing and advertising. You're right, they're in the same bucket, but I think it's more than that. It's sort of, it's not oil and water mixing, which, you know, they don't. It's more like Crystal Light, the advertising and the marketing sort of swirling together to become one. So,
I like that.
Sometimes the brain works. So I think there are, in my mind, every piece of marketing should have some sort of call to action, which could be considered advertising. Whether it be...
I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I think advertising has a distinct flavor to it. And so there's an edge of marketing, like I said, a sponsored post. So, you know, it says sponsored, you know, it says, obviously this is, I paid for this, so it's advertising. But it doesn't necessarily have to be sales, right? I think a call to action doesn't necessarily have to be sales either. It leads you into the sales cycle, but a call to action could simply be, download this or learn more. Is that what you consider advertising or sales?
I consider it both. I do think advertising, sales, and marketing are so intertwined today that it's hard to say this is sales. When people go to a networking event, let's take it out of digital just for 2 seconds. Go to an actual networking event and talk to people, and you get asked what do you do? That's sales.
Yeah.
That's advertising, and it's marketing. I feel like it's all put together there in one. So when you do a sponsored post on your example, and if it's a call to download now and it's a free white paper, you are, in my mind, that is sort of a sale, but it's not a sale in the traditional, I tell you to buy, you pay me money. You've given me your email address. I'm not giving it to you for free. There's always a cost. Nothing, I was taught long ago, nothing in life is free. You want that free white paper? It costs your email address. That's a currency today. So to me, it's all put together. A sponsored post that just says download now and doesn't ask for money, is it advertising? Is it marketing? Is it a sale?
Well, and that's the question. So is marketing / advertising in that way? So I've gotten you interested enough to click the call to action. So the marketing content creates the call to action, which is the ad, let's say. And if the call to action, if the currency is email or a phone, that's not a sale. You're not gonna manage a business by just accumulating email addresses. No,
absolutely.
I think there's a hard and fast definition of the sale, right? So you have to conduct business and you have to make money. Sales conversations lead up to that. So I agree. There's a blurred line that marketing and sales and advertising, are the crystal light in the bucket. They're not oil and vinegar. They're the crystal light in the bucket. And I agree that you said, what you said, it depends. There are a lot of variables on creating an appropriate strategy, but overall, so you had your 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time you're communicating, 20% of the time you have those call to actions.
Right.
But I still want to hear what you think the mix is on marketing versus advertising versus let's call it the hard sale, which is not download now, right? That's the soft sale. So if I'm out there spending time and money marketing, what percentage of that do I really need to consider? Okay, for every 10 general posts, one will be sponsored, and one of my posts will say, be sure to download this. And, what's a decent mix? I mean, nothing's perfect, but what can I expect to do from a marketing versus advertising standpoint?
I think exactly what you just said is where I would start, and then gauge through analytics on whether these things are working. You start at that 80-20. 80% is good content, building up your reputation. People trust you because, as we say, it must be at least once a week. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. That 80% begins to build up that trust. And I don't mean like in the sense of click like, although that's one step. Those Facebook, Twitter, Instagram posts, every time it's a touch, 7 to 10 touches to do business. So every one of those that I see is a touch. So I think the more the merrier in that regard. If you're being helpful, I see that being a good mix. 80% of it being that helpful idea. 20% we tolerate as buy now. Now, if you've got a huge sale going on or a new product, that mix can change, and it should change. If you've got a new book coming out, an author shouldn't just say, well, I'll just talk 80% about other people's stuff and I'll sell my book 20%. It's not going to sell the book. You need to maybe go 60-40 sales for a short time. But because you've built up that trust, I feel, with your audience before that, they're willing to accept the marketing messages a bit more. And
so
yeah,
go ahead. But I want to stop you. You said 7 to 10 touches. So it does take time, right? You have to develop the relationship. You have to develop the trust. But then you said the more the merrier. So where's that line where you're over marketing, where I've had it, I don't want to hear from you anymore?
There is no clear-cut line. I wish there was. It would make it very easy for you to tell people, okay, do not do more than X. Statistics and research shows that Facebook, for instance, you should do it 3 to 5 times a week. But take the Huffington Post, take Mashable, take Engadget. They post several times a day with news articles. That goes far above and beyond. Now, they have a website. I go to Engadget quite frequently. I like their content, good articles, but I'm seeing the same content in my Facebook newsfeed. How much is too much? I don't know. I don't have that answer. Only the audience can decide. And you can see, using Facebook just as the example, on your analytics, if people are unfollowing, unliking your page. And so you can gauge, okay, well, you know what? My unlikes have started to rise when I started posting 5 and 6 times a day. Big mistake then. So you can see that give and take, and you can ask. You can ask on Twitter. You can ask on Facebook. Twitter, they say you should post between 8 and 10 times a day. And that's, I think, a minimum. And you should sometimes post the same thing more than once on Twitter, depending on your audience. Instagram, we just saw this week that businesses are not taking advantage of some of the most active times on Instagram, which are early morning hours when people will fire up their phone and flip through their feed. They're not taking advantage. They're posting when it's a busier time, which leads it to more likely get lost in the shuffle. I so wish there was a hard and fast, this is it. It would make, I like to start with the 80-20 rule. And here, somebody once asked me, I have an event coming up. How often can I email my subscribers about my event? Event marketing is very different than an email newsletter. I think people are more accepting of event marketing being more frequent. I signed up for your email newsletter. You told me once a month, I get once a month, but you've got an event coming up. I accept that you're going to email me more than once. My biggest pet peeve, though, is when people email you about the event after you've registered.
Yes. Yep, I had that happen yesterday.
Yeah.
I was going to an event last night. I had already registered for it, and I got the email that said, hey, you're invited to this event.
Yeah.
So that, that made me talk to them and go, yeah, you might want to be using a product that handles that for you.
Yeah.
But so it does, there's definitely it depends on the approach, and the audience will help dictate the frequency. But I wanted to ask you on the analytics, right? Marketing has always been test, mm-hmm. and it still is. And the good thing about digital marketing is, test and almost instant results, or very short, it's not a long period of time before you really understand the value of what you're doing and how it's working.
Sure.
And so we talk a lot about strategy and, 80-20, 80%, education, 20% sales, maybe some sponsored advertising. So you've got advertising, sales, and marketing. But what about really looking at the reporting and understanding those numbers and how that can help adjust the strategy?
You can't do anything in a vacuum today. And by just doing these things blindly, that's what you're doing. Facebook has great analytics. Twitter has great analytics. Google, I don't know if you know, have great analytics. And we can tie email marketing has great analytics when done through a reputable service provider. You're not going to get analytics by blasting out a blind carbon copy through Outlook. It's in bad form.
Wow. Talk about old school.
Yeah, but old school, okay. I am a member. I am an attorney. I don't practice, but I'm a member or on the email list, if you will, of a bar association in New York. And yesterday, I got an email from them sent by, typical Outlook. And yeah, all the email addresses they sent it to are in the to section. Judges, DAs, you name it. I've got their email address now. So total aside. So all of these companies have analytics that can work together. You can create a conversion pixel in Facebook so you know if somebody clicks through what the actions they're taking. On Google, we can follow user traffic through the website to see where they're going. We can know if you're running a Google ad, if it's successful not just to drive traffic, but to drive conversion. Traffic is great, but if you're running an ad, the idea is advertising, sale, money, something.
Right, some call to action.
Some call to action. So utilizing all of those tools together, I think, help you become better prepared to make changes. If you were to look, let's go basic, because most businesses have and or need a business Facebook page. We as consumers expect it. If you go to the insights, you can see when your audience is predominantly online. So if I always use this example, and I apologize to my wife. I don't think she's watching, so I'm good. She's presenting now in Illinois. She runs an educational consulting company. Her audience is teachers. But she'll post to Facebook midday, despite the fact Insight shows her audience is active between 9 and 11 p.m. The life of a Facebook post is about 4 to 6 hours. Nobody's seeing it.
So she's not looking at the analytics.
No.
But she's doing a mistake that many small businesses do.
Yes.
Which is I post when it's convenient for me.
Right.
Which is fine to start because you have to sort of build your audience and you have to build your presence.
Absolutely.
But then the strategy really needs to shift.
Yes.
So that you're communicating your message when people are there to receive it.
Absolutely. I know Twitter also has some great analytics attached to them now, and they're getting better over the last few months. So all of this data is available for us as small business owners, as marketers, as individuals. This unfortunately I don't think works anymore. My one of the sort of small little tips I used to give, this was probably 4 years ago, you could go to any Facebook page and click the likes tab at that time and see where the majority of this company's Facebook likes were. So if the company is a competitor of yours and they're next door to you, but you see their likes are coming from Detroit, maybe you focus your marketing to compete with them. You can't do that anymore, unfortunately. But there are tools.
You can do something similar to that on Twitter.
Yes, so, yes, you can.
There are a lot of tools out there. There's one called Follower Wonk.
Yes, that's exactly.
Right, and so you can really get insight, not just into your own Twitter account, to other Twitter accounts. Not only competitors, but you can find influencers. They identify who the influencers are, and you can better understand how other people and other businesses are using Twitter, and certainly, potentially start to emulate some of the things you're seeing there. How frequently people are posting, the types of things people are posting, which could either help you generate a strategy or potentially modify your strategy. So I think we have an interesting hit here on the testing is one thing, but really watching the data that comes back. And so many times, let's go basic, right? Email marketing. And as long as you're not doing Outlook, everyone on the 2 of the BCC line, right? And you're using an actual email service provider, you are getting feedback about when it was opened, what time it was opened, if it wasn't opened, and what was clicked on, and a lot of information that can allow you to start to, at the very least, segment and move forward to maybe modifying time and day and all that sort of stuff. And very few people that I've worked with in the past take the time to look at those analytics. They're convinced email marketing can help their business. They've even in some cases proven that email marketing has helped their business, but it's more of a, I got a sale, not I sent at the right time. And that's the easiest, right? You log into your email client and there it is, or your email service provider tool, and there they are. Right. Digging through social media analytics is not all that much more difficult. No, but it's not as easy. And so people aren't doing their email analytics. So many of them just aren't watching their social media analytics. And that could definitely drive greater success, whether it's straight marketing, advertising, or sales. Understanding the elements and how people are reacting to your content is key to really moving in an upward direction.
I completely agree with you. But something you said a bit ago sort of struck me, and you had said watching those analytics allow you to create a strategy. I think companies should go into it with a strategy to start, and a strategy should be a living document. There is no reason a strategy should ever be stagnant. I should not create a social media, digital marketing, whatever strategy today, and 6 months from now have it be exactly the same. Number one, because networks change. Snapchat's becoming bigger. It wasn't around a year ago, 6 months ago. It really wasn't something marketers were using. So maybe if Instagram ads were just opened up to everyone within the last, I'll say month. I think it was 2 weeks, but I'll say month.
2 weeks, yeah.
But that wasn't part of your strategy a month ago. So if you're not reevaluating your strategy on a at least monthly basis, and I guess if they're not looking at analytics, they're not looking at the strategy. So the foundation of any good plan needs to be that the basement is the strategy. And it could be something as simple as a calendar that says Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, just to give them an idea of where they need to be when. And you evaluate it and say, oh, look, Instagram is becoming big, so let's put that into the mix somewhere. Let's look at our analytics every Friday. Oh, Twitter's not really doing what we need it to. Maybe we should cut back. Maybe it's not the place for us. It's time consuming. It is. But anything worth doing well should be. And if businesses want to be successful, they need to be successful digitally. I believe you and I were talking about millennials, and they are digital. None of this, send me a brochure, none of this, it's digital. And if you don't monitor for them, you lose them. Yeah. And they are a big part of every business. I don't care what your business is.
Yeah, if not now, then soon, for sure.
So
one thing you said was, creating, that calendar. And I'm going to challenge that a little bit, because I see an editorial calendar slightly different than a strategy. So maybe the calendar is part of the strategy, but the strategy needs to be, I think, a bigger conversation. Who are we going for? Where are they residing? How are we going to connect with them? What kinds of content? How much of it is advertising? How much? So the bigger strategy, and
I agree.
Then the when and where becomes the calendar. But I think the calendar is a huge part of the strategy, because you can develop a strategy, as you and I know. You and I have talked at length, because things change so frequently, about strategy and how should we do X, Y, Z. And it wasn't until we really said, okay, we talked about this, we're executing not as well as we should be, we need a calendar. And when we developed the calendar to be the foundation of the strategy or the execution of the strategy, we became much more diligent at following the timing that we had developed through the conversations about strategy.
You're absolutely right. And I did go very simplistic in that regard. You're absolutely right. And my thinking, I agree with everything you said, 1,000%. But my thinking was, they're not checking their analytics. They're certainly probably not sitting down and having that conversation. Because if you've taken the time to have that conversation that you just mentioned, that who, what, where, when, why, then you're going to take the time, or you've got somebody who is going to take the time to keep you updated on your analytics. And it is a big burden for a small business, but I think it's a burden well worth taking on.
It definitely is, but it's like a business plan, or a marketing plan, right? I mean, we're talking digital strategy, and we're talking editorial calendar being an element of a digital strategy, being an element of a larger marketing strategy. You mentioned earlier, when you're out networking, and certainly networking events are part of a marketing strategy and a sales strategy, right? Who am I going to meet? What kind of leads are there? What kind of relationships can I develop and build? But I think even businesses who are just developing a content editorial calendar, they have to have had some level of strategy conversation to, number one, have decided which platforms they're going to be on, good, bad, or right or wrong, and maybe they didn't do the research, but hey, everyone's on Facebook, let's do Facebook, and you know what I mean, and whatever they got to that decision. But it's more than just that calendar. It's what are you going to write, and how is it going to resonate? So I think even if the most simplistic thing they do is create a calendar, that absolutely has to grow out of a conversation where they identify at least the type of communication or content that they're going to put out there, and hopefully, they consider the what's in it for me that the reader should be thinking every time they read something.
You're right, and that is always the hope. But I've seen in practice too often that it's the conversation sort of that you intimated. Well, we have to be on, I've heard of Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google Plus and Pinterest and Instagram and Snapchat, so we have to be everywhere. We have to be there. And I've had that conversation with a client years ago. Great people, love them. But that was the beginning conversation. We've heard of all these words, and we need to be on all these words. And our audience is this. And when you step back, and I actually did this for them, and I looked at their Facebook and Twitter statistics and analytics and website traffic, and their audience was nowhere near where they thought it was. So businesses sometimes have a distorted view of who they're even talking to. So maybe before that content calendar, even if that's their only discussion, they need to have that idea of And it's no, they need to have the fact who they're going for, not the idea. And they thought it was, 25 to 35-year-old women. And it turned out their audience was actually 35 to 50-year-old women who fit into certain demographic categories. So they weren't even talking to the right people. So,
but isn't that just inherent to business in general? Not even market. I mean, if you've got a service or a product, you better know who is going to be, the customer for that. And that's how you launch a business. Oh, there's a market, there's a need, here we come. Now, that's not to say people don't get that wrong.
Right.
And that's not to say that new audiences can be developed that may have been unseen. I mean, we went through that too, where, we launched the business totally targeting the marketing industry and found an opportunity for, the small business owner that wants to know more about marketing. And that was not our intention. And that grew from our own marketing. So that, that doesn't necessarily make you wrong when your audience, a new audience develops.
But and you're absolutely right, but in this case, it wasn't a new audience, it was the audience. It didn't sprout. That was, if we actually looked back over their data that they had access to, it was their audience all along. You're absolutely right. New audiences sprout all the time. And for a business, they need to be aware of that, and their analytics will certainly help them. If you're not checking on that at least monthly, I would say, then you miss opportunity. And not just social, but for sales. You miss that opportunity if you don't see that new and shiny audience.
So that's interesting. We're talking about the analytics and definitely, my comments were pretty simplified as far as, from an email perspective, when they opened it, what they clicked on, or from a social media perspective, as you mentioned earlier, Instagram, the time of day that you're most likely to get an audience.
Right.
Then you dig further into who did this thing. So, I may have a mailing list of, say 2,000 people that I thought were appropriate and at least, opted in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I get, decent 30% open rate. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm doing great. But if I don't dig into who those people are, who are those 30%? What's in common with them? And maybe it's the 70% that I think I'm going to get more of those people every time I go out. And I'm not realizing that the 30% that open, I need to go find more of those elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's definitely different depths of analytics, time, day, content resonating. Oh, they like, topic A more than they like topic B and C. So I'm going to, make sure I talk more about topic A, or at least in the same tone. Maybe it's tone, maybe they find humor, maybe they find images, whatever that is. Right. And there's that next level of I'm resonating, but with who?
See, and what's great, and I'm going to take your example and go a step further even, because you've got that great open rate, but if they open and don't ever do what you ask them to, and I think every email newsletter should have that, click here for more information, don't give me everything, make me work a little bit, because it gives me the feedback I need. Oh, that was an important thing. Once you have that data, Facebook especially, and I know Google's getting into this as well, we can now take that segmented list, upload it to Facebook, and create audiences based upon those people. So it's the moms, 35 to 40-year-olds, and we know that because Facebook puts the information that we've given them with the email address, and they're creating now what they call lookalike audiences. So we can now really target people who may fit into that lookalike audience that we're actually taking action that we don't have access to. Now we do.
So more than not having necessarily access to that broader audience, right? Because maybe we've gathered our mailing list locally. What you're saying is now we're bouncing our email addresses against a huge database that not only allows us to create lookalike, but allows us to obtain that yet next level of information about these people that we may not have accrued. I mean, when you start developing a marketing list, whether it's email marketing or people who like you or people you follow or whatever platform, the majority of the time you're getting, you know, at most, you're getting email address, first and last name, company, maybe a phone number at most, right?
Right.
No one's thinking, or I'm sure few people are thinking, you know, if I meet you in person, I'm going to put down that you're, you know, your gender, a guess of an age range. If I had a conversation with you, I might learn that you have a pet or children, or whether it's male or female children, or, you know, gathering that level of information. That's definitely a big CRM thing, right? And CRM is a scary word. It has been a scary word forever. And first salespeople were like, ooh, and now marketing people are like, ooh. So it's another whole audience of people that are pushing against it. But we don't gather that information. The best of us do, but the most of us don't. So now I've got enough information with my email and my name to bounce against a database that does have that information. And all of a sudden, I've got my 30% in my email marketing, and I throw it against Facebook's database, and they make this lookalike. And now that lookalike totally tells me what mine looked like in the first place.
Yes.
Where I may not have had that data at my disposal simply because I didn't collect it myself.
You're absolutely right. And it gives you that that potential audience that you never even could touch. You weren't going to reach them any other way.
But it, you know, simultaneously also identifies what that audience is.
Yes, you don't get
totally understood that about our own data in the first place.
Sure.
Twofold there. It's eye-opening and far-reaching.
Yes, I mean, you don't get the actual data, unfortunately. It'd be great if we did. I won't know if Jane Doe is 32 or 33, but I know I will know her age range based upon the lookalike creation.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So I've uploaded.
I just didn't want people to worry.
No, I've uploaded a list, and now this lookalike audience is, you know, is women from a certain age range that have, you know, kids of a certain age range. Oh, I didn't even know that about the audience that I'm reaching out to begin with. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
You know, I know they're opening, and I know I'm hitting my mark, but now I have more in-depth information about them because the lookalike is based on what I delivered in the first place. Yep.
It's very powerful. It really is, and people don't necessarily understand how to use it that way. But it's the same issues. You know, you mentioned CRM, and you're absolutely right. It's I've told you I'm sort of trying to get used to the idea of a CRM. It's not how. But I'm lucky. I have you to pull me along in that regard and to help me with that. And CRM is evolving as well. For those that, you know, watching don't know, CRM, customer relationship management software, it's evolving to include the social CRM. It'll give me their Twitter and Facebook and whatever platforms they're on. And I can now put all this together and see that Jane Doe or John Doe is talking about motorcycles. So if I want to connect to them, I can start posting things about motorcycles. I can create lists within my CRM of other people within my database who talk about and now I've created a community.
And even further with CRM, you don't even have to do that, right? So you don't even have to create these lists. So you've got,
right.
you know, besides social CRM, which gathers even more information about the people you've put into your CRM system, you've got both programmatic and predictive functionality that says, okay, thanks for loading all this information. Let me take a look at it, right? Marketing automation. Let me take a look at it. And here's, you know, programmatically, here's the things you need to be talking about because we've looked at your audience. And predictably, here are the things that are going to resonate. Here's where we think they're going to be going. I'm going to predict that, you know, this time of day and you know, this type of content. So you start developing that together. And that's where the, you know, the CRM, the customer relationship management, becomes this much larger automation system that, you know, and now we're full back to the conversation we started with, which is robots, right?
Robots. I was thinking the same thing.
Go back to, you know, all I need to do as a person is, you know, is say, yes, this person needs to be part of my database. Right? Yep. So I'm going to develop the original database and then push a button, and Google and CRM and CRMs and everything else out there is going to say, okay, we know who these people are. We know everything about them. We're not going to tell you everything about them, but we're going to use that data to create the things you need to be doing to effectively reach out and connect with these people in a way that you may not have come up with on your own.
Right, right. And I just want to be clear, Skynet will probably become self-aware a little bit sooner than we thought. So yes, it's amazing the way this conversation has gone completely full circle, joking about robots viewing YouTube to robots giving us the information we need.
So wait. So robots are going to tell us which videos to post on YouTube so the robots
can watch them. Because really, in the end, the robots want to be amused, okay?
By us.
Yes.
We'll tell them what to do, and they'll do it.
Yes, the robots, maybe they are self-aware already. We want to see, and that could be the proliferation of cat videos is because robots really like cats. You know, they're as, right, they're as aloof as the robots. They don't. I don't know.
Cats are robots in disguise. They've taken over the world.
They could be. This actually could be the last broadcast ever because they're robot uprising. The fact that we've put this out there, it could be dangerous. We've exposed the great robot conspiracy.
Blab again, you know what happened.
You know what happened.
We have email address. They know everything.
They know where we are. They know the networks we talk on. They know what we talk about, the sunset pictures, the whatever it is. We are, yeah. Okay, so I basically think we're going to, at the end of this, we'll be signing off because.
And that's really the only option, right? Getting totally off the grid. And you know what makes me laugh is people who, I'm not on Facebook because I don't.
Oh, right.
I'm not over there. Okay, you do understand if you bank at a bank, you are there, whether you decide to log in the bank or not. And if you have a credit card, you are already on the grid, whether you
go even
there or not.
Go even more simplistic. Do you have an email address? Google actually, on the personal email side, their Gmail addresses, they do scan the content. Robots do it, so people aren't reading your messages.
No, the robots are reading our messages.
Yes, the robots are reading our messages and then serving you ads based upon your messages, and we've said that's okay. Twitter is now doing that with direct messages. They're scanning robots. You know, again, it's not John Q. Public sitting there going, holy cow, Ellen's really talking about that? I've got a great ad for her.
Right.
but we're seeing our ads in, now I use lots of Google and Microsoft addresses. And my Gmail address I don't use by logging into Gmail. I use it through Outlook. But when you can shut ads off, but they're still reading it to better connect you throughout their properties. Because when I search Google, I'm logged in. So I'm going to see ads based upon my predilection for coffee.
Now,
I don't know.
You brought up an interesting topic, which is multiple properties, right? So you've got Google with all sorts of multiple properties, from
Yes.
Google Docs to Gmail to Google Plus to Hangouts and
YouTube,
right? And YouTube, right? And you've got Twitter with Periscope, and you've got Facebook with Instagram. Do you see? Oh, and you've got LinkedIn with SlideShare. So,
right.
Do you see more and more of that the standalone platform is just not as enticing because they aren't able to accumulate that sort of cross-functional data, and that the more properties a platform owns, the more value they're going to bring to their users?
Yes, but I think it's more than that. I think it's the use of the social sign-in that'll really do it. So I could go to the standalone product, but I can sign in with my Twitter account. I've now just given that standalone access to my Twitter data.
True.
I don't, I have no misconceptions about what is out there about me, and I try and be good. But I'll sign into websites with Twitter before I will Facebook.
Me too.
Because there's less data in Twitter. They don't have my age, although they may because of that new birthday thing. I get balloons. But they don't really know much about me. I've got location off on Twitter, so where I tweet from isn't there. I don't know if on my Twitter account I have my actual hometown. I do on Facebook. I'm trying to think if I do. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a different community that you develop on your personal Facebook than you do on Twitter. From
yes.
Boulder. Yeah, I'm happy.
Yes.
And the conversations that you have on each platform is very different. And Facebook has that uniqueness, well, originally, where it was more personal.
Right.
Where Twitter and LinkedIn and even Google Plus weren't. But now you do have Instagram, which has a personal element to it. And Twitter can be used that way, although the majority of the conversations are about business use of Twitter. Pinterest also has that personal element. Mm-hmm. Snapchat. So there are more platforms now that do have that personal element.
Right.
But certainly, if I have the choice between a sign-in between Facebook and Twitter, I'm picking Twitter every time for that exact same reason, that more of my personal life is residing on Facebook than it is on Twitter.
Right. Okay, now I'm going to ask you, Facebook, Twitter, social sign-in, you choose Twitter. Now, LinkedIn is in the mix. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Is it still Twitter, or would you think about LinkedIn, or is it platform dependent?
It depends on the platform. Yes, I would say it's platform dependent. If it's something really strictly business, I would actually prefer to use LinkedIn, because all my business, communications are going to be there. Although some people are starting to put more personal things on LinkedIn, I'm thinking the majority of people are not going to go down that path, because I've actually seen comments like, this doesn't belong on LinkedIn.
Right.
But so yes, if it's like I signed up for something today that didn't have one of those, but it was about public relations and creating public relations and reaching out to journalists and things like that. Perfect for a LinkedIn sign-in. Perfect for LinkedIn.
Sure.
But that was
totally
I had to do the email password thing, which is fine too. And sometimes I'll even pick that over the other two, because I don't necessarily want the whole world connected to every other piece of my world. Let's just, here's who I am, my email address, my website.
You froze.
I've created purposefully So everything there is, you know, I've already approved that stuff's there, and it's my email address, it's my business email address, and this is business. Come on, you know, this is exactly where we need to be. So sometimes I even bypass the, you know, if I can't figure out how to log in with a couple different passwords, and you know my password strategy, I have, you know, a sequence that I use, not that it's the same password everywhere, but so I can get in and out of places relatively easy.
Same here.
But I do find the convenience, and you know, connecting to Blab via Twitter has been easy. So there's value in it, but yeah, choosing which one. But you're right. Back to the original question of multiple platforms, Facebook, Twitter, they don't even need to own the platforms to have access to all going on there, because we say, hey, sure, you know, I'm at 20 other places, but since I said you can come along with me, you get to grab all that information that I hadn't even thought of. That. It's absolutely.
Absolutely. In fact, I don't think Blab you can use without a Twitter account, can you? Now that I
don't know. My best guess is no. You know, everything seems to be connected to Twitter.
Which is, you know.
Which is very cool. It's one thing I would like to see on Blab. So we can click the tell a little bird, right? And then they create the tweet. I want to promote the Blabs elsewhere. So it would be great if the connection to Twitter is awesome. Tell a little bird, send, done. But it would be cool if they said, you know, promote elsewhere, and they just populated a box with content that I could copy and paste.
They could do it by an integration, you know, if they're watching, because, you know, robots are watching. An integration with Buffer would actually solve that quite easily. And I think Twitter, you know, I use Buffer occasionally, and an integration with Buffer would allow me to create that post for every network.
Or some of the other ones as well.
Well, that gives the direct line.
Even if they don't want to go that route, you know, if they just had a box that popped up and said suggested content for you to, you know, and I could just do a quick copy and paste.
That's true. That's true.
You know, because if you click the little bird, I can't see the link.
That's true.
Until I post the tweet. And then when you go to Twitter, a lot of times the links are truncated.
Right. And I'm not even sure it's working today, because I've been telling a little bird, but I'm not seeing that populate on the left side here. So, so it is working, because mine is not updating, but I also can't see, you know, who's watching, and it's not working for me right now. That's just,
Technology at its best.
Yep.
So we're at 10:59, so time to wrap it up. Interesting topics, a little flow here from strategy to robots to everything. We're touching all these topics and insights.
Any conversation that covers strategy and robots is well worth participating in.
So we're glad to see people, you know, coming and going throughout the course of the Blab, and we will be back next week with another digital marketing insights and updates Blab, and hopefully we'll have some people come and join and share with some of the insights.
And I think